Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Coda, which is episode 15 of season 3 of Star Trek Voyager. This video is a part of a series of videos where I review episodes as determined by my user polls, by my Patreon user polls. And the episode to win my latest Patreon poll is the Voyager episode Coda. So Coda is the episode where Janeway and Chakotay are experiencing a repeating time loop in which they're killed by Vidians, but then Janeway realizes that she's actually dead, and her father appears to her as a ghost and says to expect to accept the fact that she's dead and move on, and the crew memorialize her. But then you find out that that's all just a delusion, and really she crashed on the planet and there's this alien infecting her that's trying to convince her to come with him into the afterlife, and took the image of her father to try to trick her. But Janeway's awesome, so tells him to go back to hell, and wakes up and is perfectly fine, like, immediately. Anyway, if you can't tell my disdain for this episode from the description, I don't like this episode. I think this is clearly one of the worst episodes of Voyager. Every time I did a top 10, or top 5, I should say, clarify, top 5 worst episode list for Voyager, this episode always makes it. I always had very strong disdain for this episode, which is surprising to me because, I mean, not surprising that I hate it, but it's surprising that other people don't, because I look up the common reception for this episode online is, it's okay. Like, most people give it 5 out of 10 stars, or 2 out of 5 stars, or 5 out of 10, or whatever. Always like a middle rating. And I just did a live discussion with my sister, who just watched season 3 of Voyager in its entirety for the first time, and she said that this episode was okay. Like, she was surprised I thought it was so terrible too. So I'm just amazed that more people don't hate this episode. For me, it's one of the worst hodgepodge messes of bullshit. I think the best way I describe this episode is that the writers, who are very lazy and boring and devoid of creativity and couldn't come up with any ideas for all of season 3, but I'll get to that season 3 thing shortly. Anyway, they what they did is they grabbed this like mixed batch, this bag of like Next Generation or general Star Trek cliches. It's like they had a bag of cliches, and they like reached into the bag and they grabbed a handful of cliches and they threw them out, and they just tossed them on the ground. They're like, let's make that an episode. Do those ideas and cliches actually go together? Do they make a coherent story? Did they tell anything interesting about the characters? No, but who gives a fuck? I'm lazy. Let's just throw these cliches together. Let's just hodgepodge them and shove them together and vomit them on screen and make the actors actually act this out. And who cares? And who cares? Because I'm too lazy to actually fucking write a good episode. That is how I would describe this episode, Coda. So, I think that's the perfect way to describe it. There's nothing original. There's nothing creative about this episode. It does a lot of tired cliches done in Star Trek. It does them poorly, and it takes multiple ideas and shoves them together. And that's the thing. I learned, like, in the past year or something, I think when I did my, that was a couple years ago, but when I did my season reviews for Voyager, I learned through my research that this episode was several different ideas, script ideas that they couldn't develop on their own, they decided to combine. And of course, as soon as I heard that, I was like, of course, like, that makes the most sense in the world, because these freaking ideas has absolutely nothing to do with each other, and they don't go together well, and they're all terrible ideas. Well, not all of them. Like, here's the thing about this episode. The part of the reason why I hate it so much is because it could have been good. Like, alright, so let me describe to you when I first saw this episode in the 90s, when it first aired, and I saw a time loop with Chakotay and Janeway running from the Vidians. I love time loop. I love time travel episodes. I love time loop episodes that are done correctly. So when I was like, saw that Voyager was doing a time loop, I was like, oh my god. And I love the Vidians. And we were told at this stage in season 3 that the Voyager moved beyond Vidian space, and I was disappointed. But the fact they brought them back, I was like, oh my god, the Vidians! I love the Vidians. I love time loops. Oh my god, this is gonna be the best thing ever. But that all, that all turned out to be just a delusion, a fake out, a cop out, if you will. And what they did with the episode made no sense. None of the characters were acting in character, and it was doing the whole tired cliches that were never good in the first place, as Star Trek has done multiple times before, such as the cliche that the crew thinks the character's dead when we, the audience, know for a fact that they're not dead. I suppose we don't know for a fact that Janeway's not dead, but it's fucking Captain Janeway. We know that she's not dead. Don't patronize us and try to make us think that we know for a fact, we're not dumb. We know she's not dead. So I don't give a fuck about the crew reminiscing and having memorial service for a character that we know is not dead. This was done before in the Most Toys, and I complained about this in the Most Toys, but this is actually much worse here than it was in the Most Toys. And not just the Most Toys, there's also the Next Phase, and there's a few other episodes. I can't even name them all. There's been so many episodes, and it's a stupid cliche. And what the big reveal of what this actually turns out to be is that it's an alien who it's such a stupid idea. It's so dumb. It's an alien who just happens to go around and prey on people when they die, and tries to suck them in the vortex and make them pass into death. It's a really stupid, cheesy, original series-esque idea. And when I say original series-esque, I don't mean like good original series. I mean cheesy 60 schlock sci-fi bullshit. Not that I hate the original series, but it did have some ridiculous ideas. You know what it reminds me the most of? It reminds me of the whole, there's an alien entity that's actually Jack the Ripper that feeds off of people's fear, like that Wolf in the Fold episode, and they had but here's the thing. When the original series does stupid schlock like that, I'm able to forgive it because it's the original series. It came out in the 60s. It was a different era. Sci-fi was a different thing. Most of these things were still a bit original back then. But to see that kind of schlock bullshit in the 90s, there's no forgiveness for that shit. And this is one of the worst possible things it could have, where especially I'm just thinking of that ending of the episode where fucking the alien in Janeway's father, who's taking the form of Janeway's father, is like, one day you live a very risky life, Captain. You are constantly in danger, and one day you will die, and you will join my vortex, and I will feed off of you. How can anyone think this episode is not the worst thing ever? Is totally beyond me. I'm completely shocked. But I didn't even get to the worst part. The worst part of that scene, which is Janeway's response, "Go back to hell." Like, what is wrong with people? How can you not think this is the worst thing ever? I don't get it. What? That is like the cheesiest, dumbest, stupidest Janeway one-liner. It's like, what the hell am I even watching? What is this shit? Can I talk about the fact that the doctor killed Janeway and euthanized her because she caught the phage when it was actually made very established very clearly that the phage could not be caught by non-Vidians, but all of a sudden she caught the phage, and the doctor just, I think the best course of action is to euthanize you. And Janeway refuses, like, no, don't kill me. And he's like, it's better this way, Captain. And she slowly dies. Now, I know what you're going to say. I know what the response to this is going to be. Well, you see, that's just a delusion, It was all inside her head. It wasn't the actual doctor. It was just a delusion of that the alien entity was pushing about her to try to make her think of death. Okay, that's true. That is true. It isn't the real doctor. It is just a delusion. But here's the thing. Janeway bought it. If in real life, Janeway's actual response to that would be like, this is not real, this is a fantasy, this isn't happening, because the doctor would never murder me like this, especially without having Chakotay or anyone else present. He just unilaterally decides to euthanize her. And what's worse, let's throw another thing that sort of defies that I don't give a shit about the whole it's a delusion, is that we, the audience, at this point in this episode, don't know it's a delusion, so we're expected to buy this. What the hell? It's nonsense. It's total, complete, and utter nonsense. I'm sorry. This episode pisses me off. Anyway, so couple things I want to talk about in the greater context of Season 3 of Voyager. So if you're not aware, I think Season 3 of Voyager is the worst season of Voyager. I think it's one of the worst seasons of the entire Star Trek franchise. I was just looking over the episode list. I think it's fair to say that I think 75% episodes in Season 3 are bad. I think are bad. 50% of episodes of Season 3 are terrible, and 25% episodes in Season 3 are absolute crap. And it's funny because when I did a video where I ranked all the seasons of the Star Trek franchise, and the lowest two rated were the first two seasons of Enterprise, and this season, Season 3, as the third lowest after the first two seasons of Enterprise. Now, and looking at it now, I think this actually shares a lot in common with the first two seasons of Enterprise, and such that the writers didn't give a shit, and they were being lazy, and they didn't know what they're doing, and they weren't even trying, and they were just, as I said, just reaching out and doing Star Trek standards, Star Trek cliches, because they were too unoriginal and lazy to come up with anything good or actually original. Now, yes, I am in fact saying that Season 3 of Voyager is worse than the first two seasons of Next Generation. Because as bad as those first two seasons of Next Generation were, at least they were original. At least they had original ideas. These three seasons, the first two of Enterprise and this, there's no originality. In fact, especially the first half of Season 3. Because here's the thing. I will grant that the last 4 episodes of Season 3 were actually really good. So they did finally get their shit together at the end of Season 3, and especially the finale, of course, one of the greatest episodes of the entire show. But the first half of Season 3 only contains one great episode, and the only reason it has a great episode is because they took a script from Next Generation that was already finished and polished and just reworked it for Voyager. And it was a good script that they should have done, but they thought, it was too much like Schindler's List, when really it was nothing like Schindler's List. But anyway, because, at the time, Season 5 of Voyager, or Next Gen, was when Schindler's List came out, and they didn't want to seem like they were copying them, which I think was dumb. But anyway, point is, God, yeah, Season 3 is just crap episode after crap episode. I was looking it over and I was like, oh my God, crap. And I was watching other reviews again of other internet commentaries, and a lot of people say that that Season 3 was better than Seasons 1 and 2, and that Season 1 and 2 were crap, and Season 3 was the great season that recovered. Nothing will baffle me more and than that opinion. I can't understand that. Now, I did, again, when I had the discussion with my sister, she hated season 2 and thought season 3 was just okay, which, I mean, I suppose that's not as bad as thinking that the first 2 seasons are crap and season 3 is great. But I don't understand that, because seasons 1 and 2, yes, season 2 had some terrible episodes like Tuvix and fucking Threshold, yes. But season 3 has like way more terrible episodes, this being one of them. Alter Ego, Darkling, and also all my top 5 worst episodes of the entire show. And all their like terrible episodes, Q and the Gray, Before and After, Real Life, all these terrible episodes. Anyway, sorry. A Warlord. Oh, God, don't you fucking. Did I mention? Oh, the one with the Ferengi, the fucking Blood Fever. It's just bad episode after bad episode after bad episode. But anyway, so it perplexes me to no end how anyone could possibly think that this season's better than the first 2, when clearly the first 2 had a lot of original ideas. They had a great character stories. It felt like a community. They had some continuity. They had just great character moments. You felt like it was a community on the ship, and Janeway felt like a real character. But here is just a hodgepodge of let's just throw out all these next generation cliches because they're too fucking stupid and lazy to come up with anything original. I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't be so insulting, but really, it just gets my blood boiling. But I know it's all opinions, but whatever. It will baffle me to my dying day how anyone could think that way. Anyway, speaking of that, it is a common trope or common theme, apparently, through some fan circles. In fact, so much so, it was actually mentioned in Memory Alpha, which is the wiki for Star Trek, that there is a trilogy of episodes in season 3 known as the Trilogy of Terror, because they're meant to be one terrible episode after one terrible episode. And in fact, I actually very strongly disagree with this, because the 3 episodes that are listed, commonly known as the Trilogy of Terror, is Darkling, Rise, and Favorite Son. Now, Darkling, you'll get no argument out of me. Yes, that is a terrible episode. But I actually like Rise. I don't get the hate for Rise. In fact, like, people involved with Rise, like such as Jerry Taylor and a few others, I think Brenna Braga as well, they didn't like it. They thought they dropped the ball, and I was like, really? It's not a great episode, but it's okay. I think it's one of the better Tuvok and Neelix episodes, because I love the fact that Neelix actually calls Tuvok out for being condescending to him. It's like, it's about time. And so I think it sticks out for that reason alone. Favorite Son is not a good episode. Don't get me wrong. I'll never claim it to be. But I actually think there's much worse in season 3 than Favorite Son, a la this episode. So I don't think that's a Trilogy of Terror. I think people have it wrong. So I'm trying, and I know it's never going to stick, but I don't care. I have the real Trilogy of Terror in season 3 of Voyager is actually this is the second episode of the Trilogy of Terror, of the real Trilogy of Terror, which I'll mention every time I review one of these episodes. So the real Trilogy of Terror, that is 3 terrible episodes back to back, because there are other terrible episodes like Darkling and Before and After and Alter Ego or Warlord and stuff like that. Sacred Ground. God, I didn't even mention that. God, awful. But they're not back to back to back. So the 3 terrible episodes back to back are hold on, let me bring Alter Ego. So that is part of the actual Trilogy of Terror, because that is one of the worst episodes of the entire show. This episode, also one of the worst episodes of the entire show, and Blood Fever. Maybe not one of the worst episodes of the entire show, but it's bad. It's terrible. And so those are the 3 episodes. So that's the real No, don't pay any attention to people try to say Rise and Favorite Son, which Rise is actually a good episode. No, the real Trilogy of Terror is Alter Ego, Coda, Blood Fever. That is the real Trilogy of Terror, and I don't care what anyone says about that. Anyway, so there's watching this episode. Maybe it was something. It would be fun to watch this episode and make fun of it, because there's this like meme website I follow called Star Trek Without Context, and there's a few. Just having, I guess, a dirty mind or whatever. There's a few scenes or pieces of dialogue in this episode that I just started, had my Beavis and Butthead brain was just cracking up at, because it would be great to take out of context. So particularly at the start when Neelix goes up to Janeway and says, "You were great last night." And she's like, "Oh, you really think so? I haven't done that in a while." And Neelix is like, "Oh, I can never tell." I'm sorry, I'm a 12-year-old. But I just thought that was hilarious to take that out of context. And there was something later in the episode too, but I actually can't remember what that was. I wasn't as good as that one. Oh, Jesus Christ. I gotta have some enjoyment. I had to find something about this terrible episode to enjoy. I'm sorry. And like, I don't know. I mean, should I just harp again on like how cheesy it was that her father appeared and it's like, well, "You're actually dead. You're in the afterlife." I'm trying to think. Wasn't there another episode that was trying to convince a main character that they were dead and they need to accept it and move on to the afterlife, and of course turned out to be a bunch of shit? I know Next Phase might be what I'm thinking of, because I know Ro was thinking that she was dead, but then again, like, Geordi knew that he was smarter than that and knew that bullshit. But maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Maybe if there's something else, let me know. And it's not Tapestry. That's definitely not the one I'm thinking of, because that's not really, Q wasn't really, I mean, no, it was a different thing. It's a different concept. And Tapestry was an amazing episode, where this is just total horseshit. I mean, yeah. So it's frustrating because this could have been good. But it's obvious that they had this great idea for a time loop, but they couldn't finish it. And they even mentioned behind the scenes, it was 3 ideas or several ideas that they couldn't nail down. So clearly, they couldn't nail down this time loop story, and I think they should have tried harder, because I think if they weren't being so lazy and so incompetent, which the writers of season 3 clearly were, but to be fair, it's because they fired Michael Piller as part of the issue, and they weren't prepared they were like, at the last second they changed what they were going to do in season 3, and they fired Michael Piller at the last second. Michael Piller is the pillar of Star Trek. He's really why Star Trek is so great. He is the reason why I'm a Star Trek fan, and not that everything he does and writes is amazing, but he was definitely the best showrunner in the franchise has ever had. I will stake a claim on that. And they were idiots to fire him. Or I don't know. They never said they officially fired him, but he says that he was pushed out. But anyway, regardless, that's part of the reason why season 3 was shut. And so, yeah, if they actually hadn't fired him, or they actually had decent writers, or they actually had more time to actually write these episodes properly, they could have came up with a better episode with that concept of the time loop. Actually do the time loop. Don't make it a cop-out. Do the time loop with the Vidians, but come up with a better hook that make it more original, not just a cause and effect retread. Obviously, they couldn't think of that, so they just grabbed this bullshit original series nonsense idea and shoved it into this. And let's do another episode when all the characters think they're dead. Oh, we're dead. Of course she's not dead. Ugh. All right, I'm just repeating myself now. So my rating for Coda out of 10, of course, is a 1, the worst. what can I? Well, I don't understand how anyone could think this episode is just okay, or especially if they think it's good. It is obviously a hodgepodge of crap that doesn't go together. It was, as I said, it could have been a good idea, but they obviously couldn't nail it down, so they just shoved other story ideas that weren't particularly good or have been done before and tracked endless amounts of times and just shoved them into the plot and had these cheesy stupid liners. Go back to hell. What the fuck? Anyway, that's it. I mean, that's worse than the salamanders. I think that's worse than the salamanders. I'm sorry. I would take the salamanders over go back to hell any day of the week. That's just me. I don't know. Anyway, I'm sorry. Yes, this episode is much worse than Threshold. I don't care what anyone says. Anyway, that's it for my review of Coda. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully it did not anger you so much. It's just very passionate about this episode. Be sure to check out my channel for many more Star Trek reviews and other videos and other shows like The Expanse, Better Call Saul, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.